Hey everyone, Sunny here. Before we get started with today's episode of FECast, I just wanted to talk about some of the things going on in the news recently, and this is content warning, depression, and suicide. If you want to skip ahead through this, just go to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you'll be in the zone of eternal talk. And for those sticking around, I just have to get on my soapbox for just 1 minute. You may have heard the news that a prominent World of Warcraft content creator, Wreckful, unfortunately lost the fight against depression and took his own life, and that may have had something to do with a few other content creators who are not as well known but still had a pretty large following and were successful, who also took their own lives. And that is horrible and it's tragic, and well, I certainly wouldn't want anyone listening to this to walk that path. Normalizing depression is dangerous because it normalizes suicide, but I think more importantly, it's really important to normalize the fact that there are a lot of people out there who struggle with depression, and there are people who do succeed and live on to look back several years later and be very glad that they persevered. So while the recent news is certainly tragic, I think it's important to remember that there are many people out there who have actually won this battle, and you don't hear about it because people don't talk about it very much. And it certainly doesn't make the news, but I think it's just really important to know that, you know, the people around you are going through it and do succeed. All hope is not lost. Something that was really helpful for me personally was reading Alexander Haynes' account, and I'm going to link that into the description, especially for someone that is a very successful card game player. It really hit home for me, and well, I just wish I had seen it years earlier because I think it would have helped me out a lot. Anyway, I don't really want to dwell on this topic too much. There are some online resources that you can get. I'll link to that in the description of this as well. And of course, you can always message me. And well, I can't promise to be an expert at helping anyone with their particular situation, but I'm happy to talk about my experiences. Anyway, that's enough of this topic. Let's get on to the Eternal Talk with FECast episode 34, the Xenan ECQ. Hello everyone, and welcome to FECast episode 34. I am your host, Sunyveil, and today I'm joined by Eternal's happiest player, Stormblessed. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm feeling very zen. Not necessarily happy, but zen. Nothing is bothering me in Eternal. Curtain call, turn to seat, all washes over me. I am Neo in the Matrix, just dodging all of these cards that everyone's hating to play against.
Yeah, it really helps when your favorite strategy, your longtime favorite strategy, is literally what's dominating the metagame, to the point where I think we can almost say that this is going to be the Xenan ECQ.
But there already was a Xenan ECQ. There was Xenan Cultist. Remember, I don't think we can beat that as far as like percentage of people on Zenon and percentage of people in top 64 on Zenon. Although if we are lucky, we might reach a similar point.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. It's also Throne, which means that there are going to be a lot more powerful decks, whereas in Expedition, the Xenon Cultist was heads and shoulders above everything else. But I think it's also important to note that like the versions of Zenon aren't distilled down. Like everyone was playing Arc of Soul Cultists in that tournament. Yes. In this tournament, there's going to be a lot of different flavors of Zenon. Anyway, we are going to keep you up to date with everything Eternal, as we always do on this show. We're going to start off with some news. We talked about the ECQ. It is going to be this weekend, Friday, July 10th to Sunday, July 12th. Same deal as all the other ECQs. You have between Friday morning and Saturday early afternoon to get all of your games in, 28 games, and then there's going to be a cut to top 64, which is going to play out on Sunday morning. More details for that can, of course, be found in the description. I'll link to the announcement. And if you want to tune into the broadcast, I strongly recommend it. The people that cover these tournaments are fantastic, and you get special drops just for being a part of it.
And if you participate in the ECQ, you get the special Alt Art Solitude, too. This is the first legendary we're getting as part of an ECQ package, so that is exciting by itself.
It is indeed, although, well, I guess you could play more than one Solitude, although I find that Solitude is usually a one-of in a market, so getting a...
Still gives you a fancy alt-art version, and as you all know, alt-art versions means you get to swag all over your opponents, which is the most important thing in a card game.
Well, you're not wrong. I am glad that we are starting to get more alt-art options, because for a long time that wasn't available. All right, next on the news list is we have a bunch of new promos this month. Not just one this month, but it looks like we're going to be getting 4 promos this month, one for each week. This week's promo is Kozlo Friendly Scavenger. It is a 4-cost time shadow 1/5. It has endurance and ambush. Summon, kill each attacking enemy with 2 attack or less, and when Kozlo attacks, swap his attack and health and discard 5 cards from your deck. So going with the theme of ECQ Zenon, this is another Zenon card, and I actually think that this card might be playable. I don't know for sure, but like it's got a lot of interesting text on it.
Yeah, this card is very interesting because it's, I think, the first real promo that's been competitively playable, released right before a tournament. Potentially playable. There doesn't be tested because it does a lot of interesting, unique things. It's kind of hard to evaluate, and of course the other problem with that is that we only get 1 a day, so you really can't test out a full playset of these until you have all 4. And if you haven't already started getting them, well, at this point you can't get them, because this is also the first promo did not have an associated bundle where you can buy the full premiums and the theme deck for it.
Yeah, so if you started getting copies of this promo as quickly as possible, you'll get your 4th copy on Friday, which is just in time for the ECQ. I think that, especially with the new Katra, there's a lot of value for being able to mill yourself, like the options to mill yourself, put cards from your deck into your void. Those options aren't fantastic outside of Primal, I feel.
Yeah, so this card has a lot going on. Ambush is obviously a powerful ability, as we have seen recently with Xenon Ambush, and it has a big booty, which we have seen is important with Chonky Crag, and it has a summon ability, which is just very useful. But that being said, Sunyveil is not the most useful thing ever, right? It can be surprising at how impactful it is, but also like it can kill all the rats. If you're playing against a rats opponent, boop, they're all dead. But if you're playing against Stone Scar, for the most part, Stone Scar has a bunch of 3-power attackers, right? Unless they manage to not get in with their Minotaur War Leader, something like that. The 2/3 for 2, but most of them have 3 power or more, right? So this thing wouldn't stop any Stone Scar opponent. But it has a lot of interesting, unique text on it.
Yeah. So interesting timing to release this card in particular. We'll see if it actually makes a splash. It would be pretty cool if it did. If someone figured out the deck to play it in time for the ECQ. But aside from that, looking forward to promos each week this month.
I like the card's flavor. We're not much of a flavor stream, but I do like the card's flavor. Well, okay, some of it's flavor. I don't understand the whole card, but I like the fact that he's digging through the trash, but he never actually finds anything. He discards 5 cards from his deck and he never actually finds anything. And of course, I also like that digging through the trash makes him vulnerable, right? Like if he just hides, he has the 5 health and can survive. But as soon as he tries to do anything, bam, he gets killed off. That's
really funny. The last thing that we'd like to bring up, not an official news topic, but recently there have been Direwolf dev streams. I don't know if these are on any schedule. I am only finding out about them an hour before they actually happen. But I believe that Andrew Beckstrom was on yesterday or the day before. And today Corey Barkhart was on for 2 hours. And I think these streams have special drops associated with them, right?
I don't know if it's special drops or not. I do know, though, that actually BK is the one, I believe, who's in charge of scheduling these dev streams. So if we are lucky, then maybe BK will grant us with a schedule at some point. They're presumably still working out the kicks in the system, but at some point, obviously, I assume they also, Daryl probably itself would love to have a set schedule in place, to allow for the community to be like, hey, here's what to expect the next week or whatever. So
yeah, my impression with Direwolf, and I could be totally off base with this, is that they have their developers for Eternal, but those people also work on other games, so they kind of just jump from one thing to the next depending on what needs attention. Anyway, it's fantastic to see devs streaming the game. I think we've always enjoyed that back when it happened once a week way back years ago. So it's always great to see their perspective and seeing, the people that make the game take a very visible interest in the game. I think that the passion that the developers have for the game is something that goes under the radar a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think some of them are afraid. You don't want to take too public of a stance on anything, especially on like a card evaluation thing, because otherwise you end up with the Alessi incident that we're not going to really discuss in detail. But suffice to say that BK made Alessi known to the public, and that ended up being a problem. So I think they've been wary since then. But yeah, no, it's exciting, and it's fun to watch them because you can sometimes get interesting insight into development of the game that you love. So it's cool.
All right, that's it for news today, and let's spend the rest of the time talking about, well, what I think a lot of people tune into this show for, and that is the ECQ preview. Hold up a moment there, past Sunyveil. Hey, what's up? It's Editing Sunyveil, and we have a few announcements. First of all, if you're not already a part of the Friends of Eternal Discord, it is the best place to get better at Eternal, so be sure to click the link in the description if you're not already a part of the Discord. We have players of all skill levels there, from people who are just starting out and building their collections to tournament veterans such as myself, and we're all happy to help in any capacity that we can. Second of all, the FEFL, the Friends of Eternal Fantasy League, is continuing this weekend with the ECQ. That's right, it's open to everyone, and we play Spreadsheet Eternal. So if that looks interesting to you, be sure to check out the FEFL news channel in the Discord. It's a lot of fun. We have free agency, we have transactions, we have persisting legacy rosters. It's fantastic. Finally, no episode would be complete without a shout out to our Patreon sponsors. This podcast would not be possible without the support of Outside Bava, Sigma Tank, Work Done Sun, Chrissier, Chamomilk, D-Dub, and Yeast Out. Thank you so much to these fine folks who support us at patreon.com/Friends of Eternal. If you would like to donate, we would really appreciate it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll get back to the cast right now. ECQ is happening 2 days from the recording of this, and Stormblessed, you've identified 4 main pillars to the Throne format right now.
Yeah, so I think there's one thing to take away from this episode, or just understanding the Throne metagame in general. From a high overview perspective, there are 4 main archetypes. There are Curtain Call decks, there are Ruffian decks, there are Helio decks, and then there's Stone Scar decks. Because you can't stop Stone Scar aggro ever. So Curtain Call decks, and there's a wide variety of all of these, right? Like Curtain Call decks can range from the many variations of Zenon to Vox or Rats, for example. Right? Ruffian decks could be Justice X, where you just play that heavy Justice base and you slap on whatever coat of paint and which faction you appreciate. Helio decks are usually some sort of primal-based control decks that, there's some, you can have like Genev options, Haru options, Ixton options. There's a variety of different options for Helio there, though those probably have the least variation. And then there's obviously Stone Scar aggro, which, can't stop the Stone Scar, can't stop, won't stop. And so those are the 4 main ideas for the Throne format, is my opinion.
All right, so let's talk about the first one, Curtain Call decks. So I mentioned that this is ECQ Zenon. Despite that, like, you did identify like several different strategies that weren't Zenon that are viable. But I think a lot of people are talking about Curtain Call. A lot of people are talking about the various Zenon cards or cards that work really well in Zenon that have been released with Argent Depths. So why don't you break it down for us?
So as far as Zenon is concerned, I believe there are sort of 3 main variations, and then you have some sub variations. There's a lot of Zenon out there, so unsurprisingly, because Curtain Call is a incredibly powerful card, and single-handedly revitalized the archetype. So as far as the 3 main Zenon variations, you sort of have regular sort of Zenon mid-range, kind of aggressive mid-range, playing, for tempo, maybe playing some Amaranth Stingers, maybe not, but you get some good odd cards, you get maybe From Beyond, and then you also have Even Zenon, which obviously gets to play Even-Handed Golem, and so it has that massive benefit. They get Even-Handed Golem, you get Sand Warriors, and then you sort of have Ambush Zenon, which is more relying on playing things at ambush speed to just sort of get your opponent, and the fact that if you have like 5 power up, it could be any one of multiple ambush cards, so it's harder to play around, and that's sort of the power behind ambush when you push it all together. And so those are sort of the 3 main Zenon decks. out of them, I think even Xenon's probably the most powerful in my mind. But I know there are other people that have other opinions. Like I think Sunny's more keen to the aggressive mid-range Zenon.
Well, I'm not exactly sure where I lie on this. I've tried out a bunch of different builds, and I haven't been entirely pleased with all of them. And there's one more that you didn't mention is Reanimator Zenon, just going super big and going into like Vara for Azendel if you can.
Well, the reason I didn't mention it, so just to clarify, the reason I didn't mention it is because I don't really think of it as a curtain call deck. And so I was mentioning the Zenons that are playing curtain calls.
That's true. It's not really a curtain call deck. You might play like a market copy or something, but even that is not so much necessary. You don't need your units to survive. You just need to get them out. Anyway, so I think that Zenon puts two very powerful strains on the format. The first is that it makes playing aggro very difficult because one thing that aggro does not want to see is an opposing deck full of ambush units, right? Aggro decks usually don't have great ways of dealing with, say, a Sabertooth Pride Leader. Now imagine a deck that just has, a ton of Pride Leaders and Grazers, and the merchants even have ambush, and add on top of that the lifesteal granted from Curtain Call, and you just have a nightmare for aggro. And the other strain I think it puts on the format is that it makes it really difficult to play slow speed sweepers. Like, if you are relying on your turn 5 Harsh Rule and your opponent just Curtain Calls it in order to negate the effect entirely, well, then you're in a lot of trouble. That's like a Stand Together that only costs 2. Yeah, and we know how good Stand Together has been against sweeper decks in the past. So I think that the reason why Zenon is so, if it's not going to be omnipresent, it's just going to have a ridiculously large impact on the metagame because it puts those strains and like really makes it difficult to do strategies that have been traditionally successful, but will have a lot of trouble against some of these new cards.
Yeah, I don't think Harsh Rule decks are in a particularly good spot right now. Because there's not really any mid-range deck that's not playing, a bunch of ambush cards, right? Or a bunch of ways to refuel quickly. So I think Harsh Rule's in a bad spot right now. Hailstorm's probably still fine because it's so cheap, but yeah, Harsh Rule I'm not a big fan of right now.
Yeah, I agree with Hailstorm.
One thing I just wanted to mention about Xenon is I think there's a vastly underrated card, especially on ladder. I think it's underrepresented. Is a Twin Spiteling. I have found that card to be incredible, and I have loved it. And I just wanted to recommend it once again. That card has overperformed every time I've played it. And because if you're playing the time-based version of Zenon, where you're also playing like Time Simple and Ubzot, then a 4-cost 4/4 that grows bigger every turn. If you think your opponent's playing Jack, then you obviously just wait until you can make your Time Keeper a 5/5. Right? You don't have to play on turn 4. You can play your other 4-drop on turn 4. So you just, wait based on what you think your opponent has as far as removal is concerned. And, 2 bodies for the price of 1, basically guaranteeing 2 trades, basically guaranteeing a 2-for-1, right? A deadly unit that, is deadly. It's going to trade for anything, whether it's a, torch or a actual unit. I guess Snowball is the worst thing against that. And the other unit is just a huge unit, 5/5 that just keeps getting bigger. Like once it becomes like an 8/8, it's just the biggest unit in the board. Have you played with Twin Spiteling?
I have not seen a Twin Spiteling in play yet, but I think that it is a good card, just like based on my, on theory. What do you think about Ubzot? Ubzot's obviously a really powerful effect. It's just difficult to find the right home for it.
I think Ubzot is worth fighting for. Now that's also part of why I like Even Zenon, because it's better in Even Zenon than it is in non-Even Zenon. Because in Even Zenon, you can get away with playing Time Symbol. And in Even Zenon, you're also playing Sand Warrior. So like if you're going heavy time anyways, for Twin Spiteling, you also, basically, if you're playing heavy time, then you get all the heavy time payoffs in one deck. And, it turns out that when you combine all the payoffs together, the deck's more consistent and better, surprisingly.
Yeah, Even Zenon, definitely be on the lookout for that this weekend.
Ubzot's very powerful. Silencing the whole hand can sometimes just win you the game straight up. If you silence 5 of their 6 cards in hand, you leave them with a bunch of nonsense. The other thing to mention is that, you can draw out of an Ubzot if you're hit by it. Like I've won after getting hit by Ubzot even like twice in one game. But the thing about Ubzot is that once your hand is silenced, it doesn't do anything, right? Like Wasteland Broker is still a 4-cost 4/5, which isn't the end of the world. But the thing is that Ubzot's a 6/5, so it's still just going to be the biggest unit in play. If Ubzot was a 1/1 or Ubzot was just like a 4/4 by itself, it would not be as backbreaking because you could play your units out and try to trade effectively. But the fact that Ubzot itself is so big means that you not only prevent your opponent from doing things, you also create the largest unit on the board.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about Vox. Again, I think last week we talked about the article that the Boxer wrote on Vox. He's made some changes since then. I'd recommend checking out his socials and his posts in the FE Discord.
I think his change roughly boils down to there was like 3 or 4 changes, but roughly it's just he took out something and put Curtain Call in the market. That's basically what it comes down to. You know, at the time he didn't understand the power level of Curtain Call, and now he realizes the fully operational battle station is in fact a fully operational battle station.
Yeah, so if Fox is your thing, that is an option. All right, so people are trying to find ways of beating these Xenon decks, and one way I've seen people attempt to do that is to go way over the top. I've seen a Combray ramp deck that makes use of Enter the Monastery and cards like Diana and Marshall Ironthorn and to generate a ton of power and then do something really big, whether that's ultimating Diana or playing Pit of Nilanekta, or I've even seen World Pyre. I've seen Wasteland Broker put a bunch of Aid of the Huru into the deck and then World Pyre them out. I don't know how worth it that is, but it's definitely an interesting take on it. But in any case, Zenon thrives on 1-for-1ing its opponent, but sometimes when you just do something really big that can't be answered with one card, Zenon might have some difficulty. I think that's where people are coming from when they're trying to play Combray. I tried a few games with some Combray ramp decks. I wasn't too pleased. It seems like it can work, but if you don't draw the right cards at the right time, it looks a little embarrassing.
I'm not convinced by World Pyre and Throne. I think World Pyre and Expedition is really good. In Throne, not so much. Well, the least of which is because we have Pride Leader in Throne, and I play World Pyre, then my even Xenon opponent plays Cat at the end of my turn, and then I just lose the game because I got blown out and I lost my turn 4, and they develop the board and put pressure on, and then then they leave up Curtain Call on my Harsh Rule, and then I die.
Yeah, you're describing the worst case scenario, but even if you just play World Pyre and then your opponent just plays Pride Leader on their turn, that's a very, very bad trade for you.
I mean, if the opponent goes Merchant into Relic removal, it's still a bad trade because we have Merchants in Throne, which we don't have in Expedition. In Expedition, if you play like Condemn into Ruin or whatever in the Stonescar deck, it's not the end of the world if they kill your World Pyre. It's still pretty bad, but like they're not developing their board at least. So not convinced by World Pyre. I don't know about Combray Ramp. I think some of the cards it has are incredibly powerful. I think Enter the Monastery is a standout there. You have new Sword of the Sky King that's cheaper, which is cool.
It's been a long time since Sword of the Sky King was like a finisher of choice. I don't think that one's good enough.
You don't think the 7/7 for 7 is good enough?
Yeah, 7-cost 7/7 weapon. I just don't think that.
Okay.
Like, especially we're talking about a situation where sweepers are really bad, you need a sweeper with that type of effect, right? You need to fight your opponent's units one by one. And if your opponent just plays 2 units, all of a sudden that 7/7 weapon is just taking out the bigger one of the 2 and then...
One Gentle Grazer.
Oh, yeah, geez. Anyway, one other deck that I'd like to bring to people's attention is Jenna. Jenna gets to make use of the Fate cards Zhou and Jotun Hurler, and then combine that with plunder effects such as Desert Alchemist and the Huntress, the Primal Huntress. The name is escaping me right now.
Mavloth Huntress.
There you go. And uses that for its card advantage, and it can play a long game. Although, if you're playing against a lot of Curtain Calls, I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. Yes, you do get Equivocate and Permafrost, which don't really care that much about units not being able to die, but even so, like those 2 cards come at their own cost, and I think that we're just kind of playing a format where you really want to get rid of the units, and that's just really difficult with Curtain Call.
I think Genev could be in a good spot. I think that it could do some power things. It also gets access to the very powerful card Petition right now, because you can petition for a Silex, and that interaction is incredibly powerful, and being able to use it also while fixing your deck is also really good. So I think Genev has some neat tools going for it. I think Genev's From Elements card is the most well-positioned From card in the sense that it uses both sides of the card, right? Most of the From cards either use one side or the other in Throne. Like From Beyond, you're not really using it for its unit side, but From Elements, you actually get to utilize it in Genev for both ends. You can utilize it for the early game removal, and just having a late game, 2 4/4s for 6 is not great, but you do what you got to do, and it's like it's a worse moment of creation, but worse moment of creation that also gives you a pseudo torch, pseudo lightning strike in the early game, which I think is an incredibly powerful, flexible option.
Yeah, flexibility is really important. And yeah, I haven't seen anyone play an actual progress deck with From Beyond and try to flip it. I've only seen it for its discard part, but that card's actually pretty good on its own, so I don't think it needs it. Anyway, yeah, I guess Jenna has legs, but I tried some games with it and I just wasn't quite satisfied. I don't know. I've just not been satisfied with much of anything in Throne lately.
I think that so far you haven't sound like. I think that there is a good build of Genev out there, and I'm sure Popo Tito will find it. Okay, so moving on, there's also some various combo decks that exist in Throne. I'm not sure how good any of them are, but they do exist, so they're worth kind of watching out for in a sense. There's sort of 4 combo decks that exist right now. You have Talir combo, you have Shiftstone Processor combo, and Reanimator combo, and you have Curtain Call combo, going back to Curtain Call decks. So Talir combo is the same deck as before, but now you can potentially play Etchings if you want to. Shiftstone Processor is where you play a Shiftstone Processor, and then you play a Ordnance Scavenger to mill your entire deck, get a bunch of power, and then win the game with a bunch of power.
Yeah, so that one takes a little bit of setup in order to work, right? So
Yes.
in order to make sure that your deck has no more power in it, every power you play has to be a monument or a tactic.
You get 5 power in your deck that you can have. So you can have 5 powers left in your deck to mill your entire deck. Because Ordnance mills up to 5 power.
Oh, okay. Right. All right. But you have to set it up so that you get up to 5 power, then all the powers in your deck transmute into something else. And then when you play the
Ordnance Scavenger.
Yeah, so when you go to your market for it, you play it, and then your entire deck is milled. Shiftstone's Processor is a relic that says whenever a unit goes to your void, get +1 power. And since you have just a ton of units in your deck, you get a bunch of power, and then you do something. Usually just some card from the market can finish them off.
So the key there is to understand this deck is that it's weak to literally any hate whatsoever.
Yes.
you take a card out of their hand, the deck dies. You silence their hand, the deck dies. You relic destruction, their deck dies. So it's incredibly fragile, but it does win the game on turn 6 or 7 if you don't disrupt it. Which, and then it's fairly straightforward as well. Also, depending on the version, Equivocate, disrupt it, counter spells can disrupt it. So Reanimator is mostly Zenon these days, actually. Especially if you're playing the new promo, you can millify with that, but you're playing Zenon, so you can play Katra and an Hourglass. So when you're building your power, you can then play your power. So that way you can either ramp to your Vara or, play Grasp from the market as always. And, ramping from the graveyard is really powerful. And Vows are powerful. And Reanimator might be powerful. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that with the change to how markets work, basically everything is a black market. You can only have... If you have a copy of something in your market, you can't have it in your deck. Really took the wind out of the sails for Reanimator, because now you can't have 3+1 for Grasping of Shadows. I guess you could play with 8 merchants, right? You could play Felon Reanimator with 8 merchants now and just have the 1 Grasping of Shadows and really lean on that. I guess that could work, but we just haven't seen nearly as much of it recently.
Yeah, maybe it's possible, just like with always, maybe throw a Gavel into your market. Don't underestimate Reanimator. Maybe I'm not 100% convinced by it, but never count it out completely, because it's surprised me in the past and could surprise me again. The final combo is the Curtain Call combo, and there's actually 2 Curtain Call combos now. So the first Curtain Call combo is Curtain Call, Belligerent Yeti, and Stained Honor, and basically what it means is that Stained Honor. Belligerent Yeti says twist, pay 1, deal 1 damage. Stained Honor reduces twist costs by 1. So then Belligerent Yeti's twist now costs 0, which means it twists and it dies. But with Curtain Call, things can't die. So you can create, 1,000 minus 1,000 Belligerent Yeti and deal 1,000 damage and gain 1,000 life and kill the opponent.
I've heard you have to click really fast for this one too. Is that true? Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Not as fast as Glimpse combo, but still fairly fast. Just because Glimpse combo actually requires you to think about what you're doing, where this combo is, just repetitive motion, right?
Yeah, that's true. Glimpse combo is truly for the APM masters out there. I've played a bunch of it, and I run out of time frequently enough.
Only for Grandmaster StarCraft players.
Basically. Hey, I was a master StarCraft player back in my college days, but I've slowed down a lot since then.
I was gold. I mostly just play with friends, but
yeah.
But so the last Curtain Call deck is not as much clicking. It's Curtain Call, Tome of Horrors, and Kindo. And basically, as long as you can deal 1 damage or mill 1 card, you play Curtain Call and Kindo, have Tome out, and you get to mill your opponent for everything. Also, probably not that playable, but those are the 2 Curtain Call combos.
Yeah, if you're concerned about these types of decks, I would recommend From Beyond. Works pretty well. Usually picks up part most of these. Oh, actually, that last one, Tome of Horrors cost 2, Curtain Calls cost 2. You can usually take their Curtain Call.
You can't take Tome of Horrors.
Yeah. Huh? You can't?
From Beyond only takes units or spells.
Oh, you're right. Well, in any case, the other thing you can do is Royal Decree, which leads to some of the Helio decks that are in the format.
Royal Decree? Oh, come on. No, what? Royal Decree is not a good card, Sonny. Don't trick people into playing Royal Decree.
I was reading the Discord today, and I think the Boxer was talking about an argument where you should play Royal Decree in order to... because you're not worried about going down cards now that you have Helio in those control decks and the primal-based control decks. So you can get away with, playing a bunch of Royal Decrees. I bought it, although, that was just perhaps an ad hoc explanation and didn't really have a ton of evidence to support it. It just seemed like it would be reasonable.
Royal Decree is not your opponent discards a card, right? If it was just you discard any card, then it would be a lot better. But trading their card for a Seek Power is not the same thing in the slightest. It's a lot weaker.
Yeah, but still neutralizing their threats. If you're playing this type of control deck, you don't need to worry about going up on just generic cards on your opponent. You just need to get rid of the cards that matter.
Royal Decree is going to take out a combo deck, obviously. But against even Zenon, if I got Royal Decree without Onslaught, what do I care? They take one of my 4-drops and I play my other 4-drop and then I kill them.
You make it sound really easy.
Well, it is. I just play they take out Ubzot, I play Wasteland Broker. I still have Curtain Call. If they take out Curtain Call, then I just play my 4-drops and I still just kill them. I don't know. It doesn't seem worth it to me. That's all I'm saying. Because the playing what's the 3-cost one that with Nightfall again?
Oh, Shakedown.
Yes. So the Shakedown has the benefit of being played in aggro decks that can utilize the tempo gain and the neutralizing specific cards better because you don't draw out as quickly, right? So if you take out a card, they don't have time to draw back into a similar version of the same card. So I'm not convinced by Royal Decree still. I remember Kamado made a Haru control deck that was 4 Royal Decree, 4 reread, and he's like, the deck has no good matchups. He's like, I'm taking it to the ECQ, but it has no good matchups. So I'm not convinced, but I'm probably wrong about this, but I'm not convinced.
So if Royal Decree isn't where it's at, what do you want from a Helio deck? What is your goal when you're trying to play a Helio deck? Obviously, you've got Hailstorms. You probably don't want harsh rules in this metagame.
You've Turn to Seeds. You have Channel the Tempest, I guess, Prodigious Sorcery. Not Garden. You don't want to play Gardens right now. Garden sounds really bad. Garden dies to both Jack and anything with Ambush, so it dies to half the metagame. if not more. I play Garden, the opponent's like, okay, I play Grazer. Oops, Garden's dead. You played a 5-cost, Resurface, a 5-cost Ice Bolt. Just play Ice Bolt at that point. I think that's the tricky thing. You're not playing, but if you are reread in and of itself is not a payoff, right? If that's what you're asking is what's the payoff to playing Helio? Then I don't.
No, Helio is the payoff. Helio draws an absurd number of cards. It's just the matter of finding out how to stay alive, how to neutralize your opponent for enough time to do that. I think you can win with basically anything. You don't need to worry about your win conditions too much. You could just have a 1 of Scourge of Frostholm in the market, and that's
a Horus Traver is my win con.
Oh, I don't think a 1/1 is getting there.
You'll see, Sonny. They'll all see. I'm not playing Horus Traver with ECQ. Just FYI. But I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe I'll try it out. I've got 2 days left. I'll try it out.
I think traditional win cons are not Prodigious Sorcery and Channel the Tempest just aren't necessary in a world of Helio. I think Helio just does a better job of providing a little bit of board resistance and drawing as many cards as you were hoping to draw anyway.
Win cons I think overrated.
Yeah, exactly. I think that traditional win cons from Primal decks just are replaced with Helio now, and you can win with basically whatever.
Speaking of traditional Primal decks, I wanted to mention the at any cost decks, the Feln spells decks.
Yes, I don't think those are good enough. The ones that are playing Prodigious Sorcery to get at at any cost, or stealth strikes. Yeah, I just, they're too clunky. They're just trying to do too much. I feel like if you're going to play a Feln mid-range deck, which I don't think is too unreasonable, you should just go with like what M. Gallop brought to the the Throne Championship, with just like Mother Skies, Champion of Cunning, and Fel Rock. I think that's a better way of going. It's a much more streamlined plan.
Yeah, I think that possibly the thing that I think at any cost could still be a decent card, but I don't like if you just ignore the 12 shadow portion, I think it could be still decent. It does have decay and lifesteal, so it can really help you stabilize. It does actually get through Curtain Call, because shrinking it means that the front half of Curtain Call is negated, and permanently shrinking it means that the back half of Curtain Call is negated, because it will still be shrunken on the next turn when the effect ends. So I still think at any cost could be decent, but I think trying to go for the 12 is ambitious, and trying to build around going for 12 is also ambitious.
Yeah.
But we're probably not going to see many at any cost either in the top 64.
Yeah, I mean, like, what type of deck would you want to play it in? Some sort of like mono shadow like deck? Those decks are usually even decks these days, right? You've got...
And of course the problem there is that if you're playing that sort of deck, why aren't you just playing the time-based version and just play Curtain Call? If you're playing a shadow deck, an even shadow deck, then just play Curtain Call and play Zenon.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think you can play Curtain Call and 6-cost Ikaria in the same deck?
I mean, technically yes, but realistically, if you like for the time effect, probably not.
Because that Ikaria is still a really powerful card. I don't know that's well positioned right now.
If you're willing to have all your power come into play depleted, you can play 24 duels.
Wait, you have 24?
Yeah, you have seats, banners, silexes, insignias, crests. Do we only have 5?
I think it's only 5. Yeah, so I think
whatever. 20 is basically 24. Let's be honest. 20 equals 24. You heard it here first. New math. 20 equals 24.
All right.
But my point is that you could play all of those, and just your seats are always depleted. Then you'd have the influence to get away with it. But the rest of their power could be like 2 time sigil, 2 shadow symbol, 1 shadow waystone. But yeah, I mean you could play that. Maybe, but again, I'm not sure if Ikaria has the best synergy with Curtain Call anyways, because its 6s don't really have synergy with 2-drop combat tricks.
Yeah, that's true.
Traditionally speaking, anyways.
All right, any other decks you want to talk about for the ECQ?
No, I think we covered everything. And
yeah, I mean, it is Throne, so you never count out someone just bringing an old version of Rakano aggro, or like Valkyries for the third ECQ that would play Valkyries in Throne. I have no idea what I'm playing yet. I definitely want to try out the promo. That's on my to-do list. But
somebody's gonna bring Mono Fire again, and then somehow get through all of these Curtain Call decks and to take it home again second time, back to back Mono Fire.
That sounds incredibly difficult and incredibly miserable, so I don't think that's happening.
You have Prism Golem now, though?
I don't think Prism Golem's that good. I think it's worse than your other 3-drops like Milos and Thunder of Wings.
To play 3-drop Tribal?
That's
what Mono Fire wants, right? Anyways, I'm just messing with Sunny. So you really want to talk about From Beyond, it seems like.
Yeah, I think that From Beyond is pretty good. So I think that 2 cards I've identified as being pretty good in the metagame right now are From Beyond and Azendel.
2 cards on very different ends of the spectrum, mind you. They're as different as can be.
Well, actually, I don't think so, because I think they go in similar decks. From Beyond wants to go in decks that want to go late. I think that's... If you're trying to play From Beyond in an aggro deck, I don't think that's what you want to do. You'd rather play something like Shakedown, because then you're focused on... Then the focus is like bottlenecking your opponent on their power. From Beyond is more about just neutralizing some of your opponent's ways of trading up on power. I don't know if that was easy to follow, but it makes sense in my mind. Okay,
that was not easy to follow for me, I'll tell you that much.
Okay, when you're playing an aggro deck, something that you have to really do is you're trying to bottleneck your opponent on their power expenditure, right? You need to make sure that you are doing more things and your opponent is doing fewer things, and that is how you get units on the board and attack them while they have less stuff, and then how you kill them. That's basically what most aggro decks are trying to do. So when you play Shakedown, it's usually in order to fill out your curve, in order to make so that you have, something you can play on one if you have a deck like Stone Scar that doesn't have any 1-drops. And then the card that you take is usually a card that you want to... It's usually the most efficient card in your opponent's hand. Not necessarily the most impactful, but like if you shakes down someone and they're about to take their second turn and you see like 2 3-drops and a 2-drop, even if those 3-drops are backbreaking, you a lot of the time will want to take the 2-drop because your plan is to out-temple them.
So I'm just gonna interrupt slightly. So because From Beyond is very similar to Shakedown in its front half, right? Because Shakedown hits any card with 3 or less, and From Beyond is just any unit or spell with 3 or less. So you think in decks that are playing From Beyond that aren't playing Shakedown, you think that if on turn 1 you play From Beyond and you see a hand of a 2-drop and 2 3-drops, but the 3-drops are better, you'd take one of the 3-drops instead?
Well,
and the answer is no. I don't think the answer is no. You just take the 2-drop.
Fine. That situation might not be the best for illustrating in my point, but like I think that there's a pretty big difference in mentality from when I play Shakedown versus when I play From Beyond. From Beyond, I'm trying to prolong the game. Shakedown, I'm trying to make it so that my opponent stumbles.
I guess I'd have to see them both in action and which decks they're in to understand your point, and I probably will after this ECQ.
All right, Azendel. So if your opponent is relying on a lot of 1-for-1 removal or maybe curtain call, Azendel's a great way of putting 3 bodies on the board. Usually all 3 are relevant, and then it threatens and makes all of your units that have attack real threats because you can draw cards from your opponent's deck. So I think that Azendel is in a good place right now.
Oh, actually, here's something interesting. Aside from the card draw effect, which is obviously one of its major incentives, Azendel is actually a pretty interesting comparison to Twin Spiteling, because Azendel, produces a big body and some deadly unblockable bodies. Twin Spiteling is a big body with some deadly unblockable bodies. Azendel is really good at stabilizing, and so is Twin Spiteling. That's all I'm saying. I just want to bring up Twin Spiteling again. I just thought of that. Anyways, but yeah, Azendel continues to impress me. Reanimator obviously just plays Vara, plays Azendel, plays second Azendel, plays third Azendel, plays third Vara, and then just wins the game.
All right, so if the ECQ deck submission is in 5 minutes, what are you playing?
5 minutes, what am I playing? Wait. How does that work? This is not Magic Tournament. We don't have time limits on our deck submission. We got hours to think.
Okay, if you are magically transported to 3 hours before the ECQ ends, maybe 4 hours before the ECQ ends, what deck are you firing up with?
Probably a Zenon deck. If I had to be like, what am I scrambling to build? What am I scrambling to find? It'd probably be a Zenon deck. The Mad Scramble for power, I'd pick Zenon. I would not pick a Helio deck and a Mad Scramble for power, even if it's better, because Helio decks probably would require too many repetitions to build. I could also see just falling back on Stone Scar if you need to. But the thing is, I don't have that much experience with Stone Scar, to be honest. I only have 1 Bandit Queen on my account because I just haven't opened any and I've never crafted any. But I think Stone Scar is also probably in a decent spot if you just had to run with something. But I'd probably just go fall back on my Zenon if I had to scramble for power. What about you, Sunny? If you had to scramble for power, what would you pick?
Really don't know. I'd probably try to play like Reanimator or Zenon Reanimator. One of those flavors.
To be fair to the audience, let's just mention that Sunny already has won an ECQ, so he has less incentive to pick the best deck, so to speak.
Yeah, but I mean, when I won that Throne Championship, it wasn't like I was necessarily hammering out what the best deck was.
No, but you picked a deck that wasn't just like, I might pick just a fun deck, deck that I think can do well and might get there, but like, you don't have as much investment in winning the tournament anymore, is all I'm saying.
That it is definitely true. I don't know. I could see the experience of playing Mono Fire is an enjoyable one for me. So like, it doesn't have to be some sort of off the wall deck for me to be enjoying myself. Although we could see that if it turns out that Glimpse actually does have some legs to it, I would gladly play that at an ECQ before the end of the year.
I'd never play Glimpse. Just for the audience, I'd recommend you play 1 game of Glimpse and then give up on it because no one's going to concede the Glimpse at an ECQ. They might concede the Glimpse on ladder, but during an ECQ, you're going to make them play it out and make them lose their turn and then just lose the game.
Yeah.
On ladder, I'd concede, and on not ladder, I won't concede.
All right, there you have it. That's our ECQ meta breakdown. Hopefully it is... I mean, everything's still changing right now, right? We're still early in the format. It's only been a week and a half since the set was released.
No, it's been like 2 weeks, right? 2 or 3 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks. Yeah, okay. So I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, the meta is still changing. Decks are still developing and whatnot. Things 2 days from now are going to look differently from when they are right now. But hopefully that gives you a snapshot of what Throne looks like right now and what to expect at this ECQ. Best of luck to everyone participating out there. And, best of luck to you as well, Stormblessed.
Yeah, best of luck to you all. I hope to crush you all beneath my heel. But nicely. And
I am hoping to have a good time playing my games on stream. So, yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time. I don't know what we're going to be talking about next week, but we'll figure out something. It'll be ECQ wrap-up and something else, I guess. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a nice one, and I'll see you in the friend zone. Friends of Eternal is awesome, but you know what's even more awesome? Our amazing patrons over at patreon.com. That's right, Friends of Eternal now has a Patreon where you can help support the content and initiatives of Friends of Eternal. If you enjoy FECast and you enjoy the Piloting Club and you want to join the people that make all this possible and sustainable, be sure to head over to patreon.com/Friends of Eternal and consider donating. Every little bit does help. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time on FECast.